Some of the most durable and heat-tolerant annuals for our Oklahoma beds and containers are the rose moss and purslane. They have succulent leaves and stems that enable them to store water and handle the really hot and dry times of the year. Right down here we've got a patch of rose moss. You can see it's kind of an orange mango type color. And right over here I've got some cuttings of some purslane. And the plants are very closely related. The leaves you can see of the rose moss are long and narrow, sort of pickle shaped or cucumber shaped, whereas the leaves of the purslane are broader and flatter. But both make very durable annuals for Oklahoma gardens. Right down here you can see that the rose moss at this time of the year is really starting to look a little sparse, and that's because rose moss really only lasts about 10 to 12 weeks, and then it just starts to look a little bad. You can see right here that these plants are dropping some of their leaves, and they're just not flowering quite as much as they have been. So one way to get around having a bare spot in your patch of rose moss would be to keep some of the seed and then sow those a little bit later, maybe in the middle part of the summer, to carry the planting through the fall. One interesting thing about rose moss is that the flowers usually open up in the morning, and a lot of times they close up by about noon. And the breeders are definitely working on varieties that have flowers that stay open a little bit longer, and varieties that have larger flowers as well. And that goes for the purslane as well. Same, larger flowers and those that stay open a little bit longer. Now, the rose moss plants that we plant in our gardens, a lot of times will make seed, and that will be sown into the garden the next year. But a lot of the times, those seedlings that we get the next year aren't quite as showy. The flowers aren't quite as large. But I've always been fascinated with the seeds of the rose moss. They come in these little cup-like capsules, and they're silvery and shiny. I think really neat little rose moss seeds. And it's okay to grow those, just thin them out in the spring whenever they start coming up. But again, the flowers aren't going to be quite as attractive as the parents. So if you want the same big nice flowers, buy new seed every year or buy the plants. Now, the purslane and rose moss also are varieties of plants that can be a little bit weedy, and I've got some examples right over here. Right here, this is a little naturalized rose moss type of plant that we see growing in sandy soils and here in Oklahoma in places. So you can see that it's a lot smaller, and the buds really haven't opened up, but they're tiny little pink flowers, maybe a quarter of an inch across. Not really all that showy, not really that noticeable. So right here we've got rose moss, the plant. Right here we've got rose moss, the weed. And the same is true for the purslane. Actually, right here we've got purslane, the flower, and right here we've got purslane, the weed. And I don't know if you can see this little bud right here, but it's got a little bit of yellow color on it. They have the weed purslane has tiny little yellow flowers, but the leaves look almost the same. Those flat, broad, succulent leaves. And this one is naturalized in places in Oklahoma and was originally brought over as a vegetable. The leaves and stems of this purslane can be eaten. Now, if you have this weed in your garden, it's a good idea to pull it up, bag it up, and get rid of it. You definitely don't want to hoe it down and just leave it in place, because a number of things can happen. If the pieces of the plant break off, those can lie on the ground and they can root in and start to grow. Another thing that can happen, the moisture and nutrients that are in the leaves as the plant is laying there can be transferred to the seed heads and can actually form seeds while the plant is just laying there. So if you have this, pull it out and get rid of it.